If you don't choose the right monitor for your needs, you might regret it a lot later. Will you be playing games or creating content? In this video, I'll explain how to choose a monitor based on your use case. I have a lot to cover and not much time. So, without further ado, let's get started. First, there are a few important things I need to tell you. Firstly, in this video, instead of directly recommending monitors, I will show you the path you should follow when choosing one. There are two simple reasons for this. First, when buying a monitor, you need to look not only at the technical data on paper, but also at real-world tests and read reviews, because the on-paper values can sometimes be inconsistent or misleading. Second, the panels used in monitors are revised from time to time. Sometimes this is noticeable with a model name change, as with the Samsung Odyssey series, but sometimes manufacturers can quietly change the panel, and it's impossible for me to foresee that. I will have some recommendations at the end of the video, but remember this: by the time you watch this video, those recommendations may no longer be valid. Therefore, keep in mind that this video is relevant for the end of 2025. My last warning before we get into the video: if you are not very familiar with the topic, I recommend watching my monitor guide video before this one. It will help you understand better if you're new to these things. That was all the important information I needed to share. Now let's start with gaming-focused monitors. Gaming-focused monitors. If you're looking for a gaming-focused monitor, the first thing you should consider before making a choice is the type of games you'll be playing. Do you play more competitive games, or do you prefer casual or single-player story-driven games? These two types are completely different in terms of what they demand from a monitor. To clearly explain the difference between them, let's divide the needs into two. Competitive games. In competitive games, the most important things are a high refresh rate, hertz, and low latency, or input lag. Every millisecond makes a difference in these games, so image quality takes a back seat, meaning we don't need to focus too much on details like brightness, contrast, or color accuracy at this point. Here, speed is more important than anything else. For the same reason, TN, IPS, and OLED panels stand out due to the low response times they offer. When it comes to screen size, 24-inch monitors are generally preferred because this size allows you to see the entire screen at a single glance, making it possible to play without losing focus in competitive games. In summary, the one and only important thing is speed. Single-player games. In casual games, visual quality is much more important since there's no millisecond-level criticality. The main goal is to see landscapes, atmosphere, and details clearly, so brightness, contrast, and color accuracy come to the forefront. The panel choice can be VA, IPS, or OLED, depending on the budget. Screen size is also entirely a matter of personal taste and budget. You can get a 23-inch or even a 32-inch. In summary, visual enjoyment is more important than speed. Now it's time to look at the review results. The four monitors I've chosen to explain the topic are ranked from best to worst as follows. Let's examine these four monitors side by side. You can ignore the ROG Swift for now because this monitor is absurdly good. It wouldn't be fair to make a comparison here. I just added it as an example for the question, what would a monitor look like if it were made in the best possible way? The picture becomes clear the moment we look at the response times. Samsung really messed up. While an 11 millisecond GTG, gray to gray, value is already quite high, adding a 30 millisecond MPRT on top of that creates a terrible ghosting problem. With such high latency values, it can't deliver true 144 Hz performance, because a true 144 Hz experience requires an MPRT value of 6.9 milliseconds at most. Not only is it not fast, but the image quality is also very negatively affected. Meanwhile, the Asus VG249Q1A can offer a much faster and smoother image, with its 3 millisecond GTG and 6.1 milliseconds MPRT values. Considering that the required MPRT value for 165 Hz is 6 milliseconds, this is quite good. On the other hand, the AOC Q27G3XMN wonderfully meets the 5.5 milliseconds MPRT limit required by its 180 Hz refresh rate despite being a VA panel. With 4.2 millisecond GTG and 4.5 milliseconds MPRT values, it offers truly impressive performance for a VA panel. Now, let's move on to image performance. There are three main topics that concern us here: color gamut, contrast ratio, and brightness. And then, of course, there's the issue of the panel lottery. This means that even with the same model of monitor, a panel that reaches 290 nits of brightness for one user might reach up to 305 nits for you. The Samsung and Asus monitors here are quite similar to each other. The differences are so small that I can say it's a classic panel lottery situation. In terms of brightness, Asus is slightly ahead. In terms of color gamut, both models are almost equal. However, in contrast ratio, Samsung takes a significant lead thanks to its VA panel. If we set aside panel speed, both monitors are very close in terms of visual performance. Now let's get to the AOC. The fact that it uses a fast VA panel is interesting in itself, but on top of that, its visual performance is also very successful. It offers a significantly wider color gamut than the ASUS. Its maximum brightness is around 320 nits in normal mode, but can go up to 1000 nits in HDR. Its contrast ratio is also higher than Samsung's because it uses a full-array backlight. To give a brief summary, the response times of the Samsung Odyssey G3 are truly awful. No matter what type of game you play, this monitor will not satisfy you. Even though its contrast ratio and color gamut are good, the image appears seriously blurry and distorted due to these poor response times. If you see a monitor with similar values, definitely stay away. The ASUS VG249Q1A is better than the Samsung in every aspect except for contrast. It achieves this thanks to its fast panel. You can confidently choose models with similar values to this monitor. The AOC Q27G3XMN, despite being a VA panel, performs very well in every area. A 180 Hz refresh rate might be a bit low for competitive gamers, but I don't think this monitor was made for competitive gamers anyway. It may not be visually perfect, but it's not easy to find a monitor that is this fast and provides a better image. Now we come to the part that causes the most confusion: content creator monitors. Just like with gaming monitors, there are different subcategories for these monitors. But to make things easier, I will explain by blending the photo editing and video editing categories. But remember, if you want to get the most optimal result, you need to clearly separate the categories. First, refresh rate is generally unimportant, and response times should be at a level that doesn't affect the image. Quad HD or 4K resolutions are standard. As the resolution increases, the amount of visible detail increases, making it a must-have. Similarly, a larger monitor size is an important plus, as it makes it easier to focus on details and work in programs. When it comes to color, even the DCI-P3 gamut can be insufficient for these monitors, so the Rec 2020 gamut is what we look at. The more professionally you work, the wider the color support of the monitor you choose should be. The most important thing in these monitors is not the wide color gamut, but the low color deviation, i.e. the delta E values. This value is desired to be 2 or below. As for the panel, IPS-type panels are mostly used. QD OLED panels can also be used, but the brightness, burn-in, and text clarity issues of OLEDs can be upsetting. If this topic interests you, I have a video on my channel where I talk about these issues. You can watch it after this video is over. For this category, we will proceed with a total of 5 models. The reason the VG249Q1A is here is actually to serve as a control group. I added it to the list so you can understand the differences more clearly. Don't be surprised to see gaming monitors here. Some gaming monitors are also very good for content creation. Let's start by comparing a more ordinary monitor like the VG249Q1A with the better-equipped AOC Q27G40XMN. In terms of color performance, I didn't have high expectations from the ASUS anyway. When we look at the color coverage values, the ASUS gives 95% sRGB and 74% Adobe RGB results. This isn't bad for an affordable monitor, but when the subject is professional use, it is frankly insufficient. On the AOC side, things are much better. With 99% sRGB and 95% Adobe RGB coverage values, it easily pulls ahead. The picture is similar when we look at the post-calibration delta E values, which is how much deviation the colors are displayed with. The ASUS gets 0.56 white delta E and 1.10 color delta E values, while the AOC takes the lead with 0.69 white delta E and 0.38 color delta E. Since the color deviation needs to be as low as possible in content creation, I'm eliminating the ASUS without further delay. As the competition heats up, you'll see the other differences clearly. Now let's compare the AOC with the Acer Nitro XV 275K. Spoiler, the Acer is absurdly good. The color performance of both monitors is quite good, but we need the best. That's why we'll focus on more challenging color gamuts, i.e. wider color spaces. The AOC gets 90.3% coverage in DCI-P3 and 74.9% in Rec 2020. The Acer raises the bar a bit higher, reaching 95.7% in DCI-P3 and 83.8% in Rec 2020. In terms of color performance, Acer's superiority is quite clear. Now let's move on to post-calibration color accuracy, the delta E values. The AOC gets results of 0.69 white delta E and 0.38 color delta E. The Acer comes in with 0.99 white delta E and 0.72 color delta E. At first glance, the AOC might seem better, but let's dig a little deeper to understand why the Acer is actually better. Text performance on the Acer is significantly better. There are two reasons for this: resolution and subpixel structure. Subpixels are the tiny color cells that make up each pixel. Since you'll be seeing a lot of text in office or productivity-oriented work, the difference here is really important. On the resolution side, the situation is clear. The AOC is Quad HD at 27 inches, while the Acer is also 27 inches, but with a 4K resolution. This means much sharper and more detailed images thanks to a denser pixel structure. Considering the level of competition here, the AOC unfortunately has to be eliminated. Now I will compare the Acer Nitro with a true ultra-wide content creation monitor, the Dell U4025QW. First of all, there is a huge size and resolution difference between the two monitors. The Dell offers a 21:9 aspect ratio, a 40-inch size, and a 5120 by 2160p resolution. The Acer comes with the more standard 16:9 ratio, a 27-inch size, and 4K resolution. The color issue is the most interesting part. The Acer has 95.7% coverage in DCI-P3 and 83.8% in Rec. 2020. The Dell comes in with 96.3% in DCI-P3 and 77.8% in Rec. 2020. If we only look at these values, you might say Acer is better. But you know what I'm going to do. It's time for the color deviation delta E performance. While the Acer gets 0.99 white delta E and 0.72 color delta E, the Dell achieves truly impressive results like 0.61 white delta E and 0.35 color delta E, despite being on a large 40-inch panel. Here, the Dell and Acer are almost exact opposites of each other. The Dell covers fewer colors, but displays them with almost perfect accuracy, while the Acer displays more colors with more error. So, even though its color range is slightly narrower, it closes the gap with its accuracy. In terms of text performance, the two monitors are very close, so now let's look at brightness and contrast. The Dell has 300 nits of brightness and a serious contrast ratio of 1900:1, which is unexpected from a 40-inch IPS panel. The Acer offers 570 nits of brightness thanks to its 576-zone backlight, but its contrast ratio is around 1100:1. When we consider all this, the result is clear. The Acer is eliminated. It put up a good fight for a gaming monitor, but it can no longer continue against the professional-grade Dell. Now we've reached the most heated part. Facing the 40-inch ultra-wide Dell is the 27-inch Asus ProArt PA27 JCV. Both are ambitious monitors in their own lanes, but their use cases are not identical. The Dell is more advantageous for video editing projects with crowded interfaces thanks to its large screen and 120Hz refresh rate. But let's put that difference aside for now and move directly to the technical comparison. The first goal comes in the resolution department. While the Dell offers a 5120 by 2160p resolution at 40 inches, the Asus comes with a 5120 by 2880p resolution in a more compact 27-inch size. This means it has an even higher pixel density than the Dell. If you don't need a large monitor, the ProArt takes the lead at this point. Now let's move on to color performance. The Dell has 96.3% DCI-P3 and 77.8% Rec. 2020 coverage. The Asus comes in with 99.5% DCI-P3 and 75.6% Rec. 2020. So with a small difference, Asus is ahead here. So what about color accuracy? The delta E values. The Dell gets results of 0.61 white delta E and 0.35 color delta E. The Asus comes in with 0.64 white delta E and 0.40 color delta E. The difference is very small. Taking the size difference into account, the Dell could be considered slightly more advantageous in this table. But to be honest, both monitors exhibit top-tier performance in this regard. Their text performances are again very close. So let's move on to the brightness and contrast. The Dell offers pretty good values for an IPS panel with 300 nits of brightness and a 1900:1 contrast ratio. The Asus, with 600 nits of brightness and a 2000:1 contrast ratio, is clearly better here. If we ignore the size difference, Asus wins this round. Now I'm going to give you a few price-to-performance monitor recommendations. But before that, there's something I want to tell you. You know, I don't normally bring these things up, but a large majority of viewers are not subscribed and don't like the videos. This negatively affects the views. If you want to support me, don't forget to subscribe, like the video, and leave a comment. That way I can make more videos for you. Now let's continue where we left off. 1. MSI Mag 256F. If you want to buy a cheap but effective monitor, the MSI Mag 256F is one of the most reasonable options in the $100 to $110 range. Excluding the panel lottery, the review data is as follows. It has a brightness between 350 to 400 nits and contrast ratios like 1000 to 1 or 1150 to 1. It's one of the 180 Hz 1080p IPS monitors we're used to seeing. Its color performance is above what I expected for its price. It gives 100% sRGB, 88% Adobe RGB, and 97% DCI-P3 values. Delta E deviations between 1.85 and 1.08 are not bad for this segment. I couldn't find an OSRTT test for panel speed, but from what I've seen in forums, there are two modes, fast and fastest. Fastest is awful. It has very significant overshoot. The fast mode is better, but there's a bit of ghosting. It's not bad, but it's not good either. 2. Lenovo Legion R24E. If you can increase your budget a bit and want a better monitor, the Lenovo Legion R24E, sold for around $120 to $150, is a very strong option. It offers around 230 to 250 nits of brightness and a 1000 to 1 contrast ratio. If you're going to use the monitor in a bright environment, under 250 nits might be a bit annoying. Other than that, it's another monitor in the segment we're used to, 23.8 inches, 1080p, and 180 Hz. So it's very similar to the MSI Mag 256F, but of course, it's more successful. Its color accuracy is at a very good level. It gives 99% sRGB, 84% Adobe RGB, and 94% DCI-P3 values. Also, its sRGB gamut width is around 140%, which is quite impressive for this price range. On the Delta E side, the picture is a bit unstable. The average is around 1.50, but it can occasionally go above 2. Regarding panel speed, the data is clearer this time. To reach a 180 Hz refresh rate, it needs an MPRT value of at least 5.5 milliseconds. According to test results, in Level 2 overdrive mode, both MPRT and GTG are around 5.3 milliseconds. The fact that these two values are close to each other ensures there is no image distortion or overshoot. When switching to Level 3 overdrive, slight overshoot is seen in some scenes, but overall, still meets the requirements with an average of 3.8 milliseconds GTG and 5.5 millisecond MPRT, and doesn't cause a significant loss in the image. In summary, while it is slightly behind MSI in color accuracy, it is superior in terms of panel speed. 3. AOC Q27 G3 XMN. If you're looking for good image quality at 1440p resolution, the AOC Q27 G3 XMN in the $200 to $250 range is a very good choice. First of all, the biggest difference that sets this monitor apart from others is its use of a full-array local dimming backlight with 336 zones. This gives it a significant advantage in terms of brightness, HDR, and color performance. A 4500 to 1 contrast ratio, combined with the full-array structure, allows it to reach up to 1000 nits of brightness. When HDR is off, it stays around 350 to 400 nits, which is still quite sufficient. It uses a 27-inch 1440p resolution 180 Hz VA panel. Normally, you wouldn't expect much from VA panels in terms of color accuracy, but this model completely breaks that stereotype. Its color coverage data is quite impressive. It achieves great values like 98% in sRGB, 90% in Adobe RGB, 91% in DCI-P3, and 70% in Rec 2020, the widest gamut in the color space. The Delta E values are around 1.5 to 2, but when calibrated, they can drop to extremely low values like 0.60. The panel speed, combined with this color performance on a VA panel, is amazing. On the medium overdrive setting, it's more than fast enough for 180 Hz with 4.2 millisecond GTG and 4.5 MPRT values. However, when you switch to strong mode, excessive overshoot occurs, so I definitely do not recommend it. In summary, if you choose this monitor, you will set the bar very high for the next monitor you buy. 4. Acer Nitro XV275K. If you have the budget and aim to play games in 4K, the Acer Nitro XV275K at around $350 is a very reasonable option. Just like the previous model, this monitor also uses full-array local dimming. However, this time there are a full 576 zones, meaning it offers much more detailed light control. Since it uses an IPS panel, the contrast ratio is around 1100 to 1, and it has an HDR 1000 certification. It has a brightness of 950 to 1000 nits in HDR mode. When HDR is off, it's around 550 to 650. This is more than a sufficient level. It uses a 27-inch 4K resolution, 160Hz IPS panel, meaning it's a very balanced model in terms of both resolution and speed. Its color performance is truly impressive. It has 98% sRGB, 99% Adobe RGB, 95% DCI-P3, and 83% Rec 2020 coverage. The average delta E is around 1.2, and when calibrated, it drops to levels as low as 0.70. The panel speed and color quality are better, as you can guess from it being an IPS. On the normal overdrive setting, it gets 4.4 millisecond GTG and 5.7 millisecond MPRT values. Considering the minimum requirement for 160 Hz is 6.25 milliseconds, this monitor comfortably exceeds the standard. But when you switch to extreme overdrive mode, serious overshoot problems begin, so it's best to stay away. If you want to play games in 4K, this monitor is a true price-to-performance beast. If you're not a professional, its color performance will be more than enough for your work. We're finishing our video, so if you were to buy one of these monitors, which one would you choose? Don't hesitate to write it in the comments. I'm curious about your opinions. If you liked the video, don't forget to hit the like button. If not, feel free to dislike it. Stay mysterious until the next video. Take care, and bye.